Worthy is the Lamb. Yoruba Methodist in Book 12, English 427. English 427, Yoruba 12. Come to me, all ye labor, and I will give you rest. I will be merciful unto the unrighteous, and their sins I will not remember again. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth on him should not perish, but have eternal life. At this point in time, the choir will sing songs of praise and worship.
Hallelujah. Heavenly Lord, your name is wonderful. Your name is excellent. Your name is beautiful. I worship you, Lord, for you are mighty. You got the whole world in your hand. Heavenly Lord, heavenly Lord, your name is wonderful. Oh, your name is excellent. Your name is beautiful. I worship you, Lord, for you are mighty. You got the whole world in your hand. You got the whole world. You got the whole world in your hand. 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 Ẹ̀yin ni bàbá tó ń tó bàbá. Ẹ̀yin ni bàbá tó ju bàbá lọ. Ẹ̀yin ni bàbá tó ń tó bàbá. Ẹ̀yin ni bàbá tó. Ẹ̀yin ni bàbá. Ẹ̀yin ni bàbá tó tó bàbá. Ẹ̀yin ni bàbá tó ju bàbá lọ. Ká tó dá ayé lẹ́tí wá o. Ká tó dá ọ̀run lẹ́tí jọba. Ẹ̀yin ni ìbẹ̀rẹ̀ ohun gbogbo àtòpin ohun gbogbo. Alágbára ńlá lórílẹ̀ ayé. Ẹ̀yin ni bàbá tó tó bàbá. Ẹ̀yin ni bàbá. Ẹ̀yin ni bàbá o. Ẹ̀yin ni bàbá tó tó bàbá. Ẹ̀yin ni bàbá. Ẹ̀yin ni bàbá tó tó bàbá. Ẹ̀yin ni bàbá tó ju bàbá lọ. Hallelujah. Hallelujah, Jésù yé. Hallelujah, Jésù yé. Ó ń gbénu mi, ó ń gbénu rẹ̀. Hallelujah, Jésù yé. Hallelujah, Jésù yé. Hallelujah, Jésù yé. Ó ń gbénu mi, ó ń gbénu rẹ̀. Hallelujah, Jésù yé. Hallelujah, Jésù yé. Hallelujah, Jésù yé. Ó ń gbénu mi, ó ń gbénu rẹ̀. Hallelujah, Jésù yé. Hallelujah, Jésù yé. Hallelujah, Jésù yé. Ó ń gbénu mi, ó ń gbénu rẹ̀. Hallelujah, Jésù yé. Dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ bàbá, dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ bàbá. Sọ fún pé ṣe. Dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ bàbá. Ọba tó pa ẹ́ mọ́ ní gbogbo ojoojúmọ́ ó sọ fún bọ́. Ó gbogbo ènìyàn dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ bàbá. Sọ fún bàbá dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ bàbá ó dúpẹ́. Màmá dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ bàbá ó dúpẹ́. Àníkọ́ dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ bàbá. Ọba tó pa wá mọ́ nínú ewu gbogbo dúpẹ́. Gbogbo ènìyàn dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ bàbá. Sọ fún kò ṣe wọ́n. Baba, you are the reason why we are singing the are singing. You are the
Most High God.
Jehovah. You are the Most High God. Jehovah. You are the Most High God. Jehovah. You are
the Most High God.
Hallelujah. Somebody be Bojido ayo. Ìwọ ló mọ̀ Bojido ayo. Ayérayé. Boyo mema, boyo mema, boyo mema, oh mema, boyo mema, boyo mema, boyo mema, oh mema, boyo mema, oh mema, boyo mema, oh mema. Hallelujah.
The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Holy, holy, holy Lord God of hosts, heaven and earth are full of your glory. Hosanna in the highest. Lord, we gather together here this morning to say thank you. Thank you, Lord, for the sound sleep we had. Thank you, Lord, for waking us up. Thank you, Lord, for pouring off your rain to witness a new atmosphere. Father, accept our praises in Jesus' name. Lord, we thank you for being an eyewitness of this Sunday, today which marks the last Sunday in the month of April. In spite of all ups and downs of life, in spite of all hiccups of life, in spite of all health challenges the entire world is facing, Lord, we thank you for seeing another day. Thank you for seeing the last Sunday in the month of May, in the month of April. Father, accept our praises in Jesus' name. We realize our transgression. We realize our iniquities. We realize our shortcomings. We realize where we have failed to serve you. We realize where we have dissected you. Our God and our Father, you are God of forgiveness. Father, forgive us all our sins in Jesus' name. The Bible says if we say we have no sin, then we deceive ourselves. Then the truth is nothing else. But at this point in time, Lord, we gather together to confess our sin. Where we have cheated others, where we have humiliated others, where we have used our position to victimize others. Almighty and everlasting God, we pray for forgiveness of our sins in Jesus' name. The Bible says, where two or three are gathered together, Lord, you will be in their midst. Despite the fact that we couldn't hold service this morning, we commit all brethren who are at their various homes watching us this morning, where each and every one of us have sinned against you. Father, we pray for forgiveness of sin in Jesus' name. Thank you, wonderful Jesus. In Jesus' name we pray. The Lord's Prayer. Who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in us as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thy is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. We will continue our service by singing the hymn 70 in Yoruba, English 160. 160 in English, Yoruba 70.
The Old Testament reading is taken from the book Joel. Joel chapter 2, we read from verse 21 to 27. Joel chapter 2, we start the reading from verse 21. Do not be afraid, land of Judah. Be glad and rejoice. Surely the Lord has done great things. Do not be afraid, you wild animals, for the pastures in the wilderness are becoming green. The trees are bearing their fruits. The fig tree and the vineyard yield their riches. Be glad, people of Zion. Rejoice in the Lord your God, for he has given you the autumn rain, because he is faithful. He sends you abundant shower, both autumn and spring rain, as before. The threshing floors will be filled with grain, and vast will overflow with new wine and oil. I will repay you for the years that the locusts have eaten, the great locusts, the young locusts, another locust, and the locust swarm, my great army that I send among you. You will have plenty to eat. Unto you are full, and you will praise the name of the Lord your God, who has worked wonders for you. Never again will my people be ashamed. Then you will know that I am in Israel, that I am the Lord your God, and that there is no other. Never again will my people be ashamed. This is the word of God. We continue as we read from the New Testament. We read the first epistle of Peter, chapter 1. We start the reading from verse 17. Verse Peter, chapter 1. We start from verse 17. Hear the word of God. Since you call on a Father who judges each person's work impartially, live out your time as foreigner here in reverence. For you know that it was not with perishable things, such as silver or gold, that you were redeemed from the empty way of life added down to you from your ancestor, but with the precious blood of Jesus Christ, a lamb without blemish or defeat. He was chosen before the creation of the world, but he was revealed in this last time for your sake. Through him you believe in God, who rose him from the dead and glorify him, and so your faith and hope are in God. Now that you have purified yourself by obeying the truth, so that you have sincere love for each other, love one another deeply from the heart. For you have been born again, not of perishable seed, but of imperishable, through the living of enduring word of God. For all people are like grass, and all their glory is like the flowers of the field. In the grass wither, and the flower falls, but the word of the Lord endures forever. This is the word of God. We continue as we sing in 575 in Yoruba, 780 in English. Let us pray.
ẹ jẹ́ ká gbàdúrà.
Father, in the mighty name of Jesus Christ, Almighty God, the beginning and the ending of everything, the word before the words. Lord, here we are, we want to hear you in the language that we will understand. Lord, speak to us in Jesus' name. We ask, oh Lord, that you reveal yourself to us so that we can conceive you in another dimension today. Father, speak yourself to us in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. The word that we will hear today, O Lord, we pray that you will not stand against us on the day of judgment. Thank you, Lord, because of answer us. We worship your holy name. For we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Praise the Lord.
Hallelujah.
Praise the mighty Jesus.
Hallelujah.
To God be the glory for great things he has done,
Ògo ni fún Ọlọ́run fún ohun ńlá tó ṣe.
for making it possible for us to be among the living today.
Tó jẹ́ kó ṣeé ṣe fún wa láti wà láàrin àwọn alààyè
Despite
lónìí.
all what the whole wide world is facing at this moment,
Pẹ̀lú ohun tí gbogbo àgbáyé ń dojúkọ nírú
but
àkókò
his
bí èyí.
promises to keep us safe still endures.
Ìlérí rẹ̀ láti pa wá mọ́ ó wà títí láé.
For this reason, we return all the praises back to
Fún
him.
ìdí èyí, a dá gbogbo ìyìn ògo padà fún.
Today, we want to arouse our spirit again
Lónìí, a tún fẹ́ ru ọkàn wa sókè
with the theme of the word that says,
pẹ̀lú àkòrí tí ó wí pé
Joy after sorrow.
ayọ̀ lẹ́yìn ìbànújẹ́.
Joy after sorrow.
Ayọ̀ lẹ́yìn ìbànújẹ́.
Let us go quickly to the word of God.
Ẹ jẹ́ ká lọ kọ́kọ́ sínú ọ̀rọ̀ Ọlọ́run
In the book of Joel,
nínú ìwé Jóẹ́lì
chapter 2,
orí kejì.
I read verse 25.
Mo ka ẹsẹ̀ kẹẹ̀dọ́gbọ̀n.
I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten, the cankerworm and the caterpillar, and the powerworm, my great army which I sent among you. Praise the Lord.
Hallelujah.
God promised that he will return those years for us again.
Ọlọ́run ṣe ìlérí pé òun yóò dá ọdún wọn
Remember
lẹ̀.
what the psalmist said in the book of Psalm chapter 30 verse 5.
Ẹ jẹ́ ká rántí ohun tí onísáàmù kọ nínú orí ọgbọ̀n
He
ẹsẹ̀
said,
karùn-ún
sorrow may endure for a night,
pé ẹkún lè pẹ́ dalẹ́
but joy comes in the morning.
ṣùgbọ́n ayọ̀ ń bọ̀ lówùúrọ̀.
Let me quickly ask us this question.
Ẹ jẹ́ kí n bi wá léèrè ìbéèrè yìí.
What are our worries during this COVID-19 period?
Kí ni àwọn àníyàn wa nírú àkókò
What
tí
is
ohun tí ó
our
ń ṣẹlẹ̀?
challenges at this period of time?
Kí ni ìpèníjà wa nírú àkókò bí èyí?
Is it the changes in the Roman routine that we engage in?
Ṣé ìyípadà tó wà nínú bí a ṣe ń gbé ìgbé ayé
Students
wa
can no
lójoojúmọ́?
longer go to their school
Àwọn
again.
ọmọ iléèwé ò lè lọ sí ilé ẹ̀kọ́ wọn mọ́.
Businessmen and women cannot attend to their businesses.
Àwọn oníṣòwò lọ́kùnrin lóbìnrin wọn ò lè lọ
Even
sí
the
ọjà
workers
wọn.
cannot go to their offices again.
Pàápàá jùlọ àwọn òṣìṣẹ́ gan wọn ò
Is
tiẹ̀ lè lọ
it
sí
the
iṣẹ́.
way that the illiterate handle this issue
Ṣé bí àwọn tí ò tiẹ̀ ní òye
that
àti
is
wọn ní
bothering you so much?
àbóhun ló ń da ọkàn wa rú?
Is it the social distance that deprive you of some joints that you used to be?
Ṣé àwọn àlàfo àwọn àyè tí wọ́n ní ká máa fi sílẹ̀ láàrin ara wa
You
tó jẹ́ ká
can
kúrò
no longer
ìbáṣepọ̀
go
sí
to
ara?
cinema again.
A lè lọ sílé ìwòran mọ́.
You can no longer go to stadium
A
again.
lè lọ sí pápá ìgbábọ́ọ̀lù.
Even Christians can no longer gather together to hold vigil.
Kristẹni pàápàá wọn ò lè péjọ láti ṣe ṣọ́ọ̀bù.
Christians can no longer gather together to hold fellowship
Wọn ò
again.
tiẹ̀ lè ní ìdàpọ̀ bíi ti
Is
tẹ́lẹ̀.
it the unknown fear of what will happen afterwards?
Ṣé ẹ̀rù ohun tí ó ṣẹlẹ̀ lẹ́yìn
Your own may be what will be the situation of this world after the COVID-19 might have been conquered.
pé báwo ni ilé rẹ yóò ṣe rí nígbà tí ìṣẹ̀lẹ̀ yìí bá
Are
wá?
you tired of the extension that we are having day and night every 2 weeks for lockdown?
Ṣó tiẹ̀ ti sú wa fún bí ọ̀sẹ̀ bíi méjì tán fún wa.
Are
ká
you
máa fi jókòó
tired of
sílé?
the home routine, sleep, wake, eat, and the rest?
ṣé ká sùn ká jí nílé ó tiẹ̀ ti sú wa.
Let me tell you this.
jẹ́ kí n sọ yìí fún
You are not the only person in this situation.
kì í ṣèwọ nìkan ló wà nínú
But I want to assure you this morning
ṣùgbọ́n mo fẹ́ mú dá ọ lójú
that
lówùrọ̀
definitely we will overcome.
pé lótìtọ́ a ó borí.
Surely we will overcome.
dájúdájú a ó borí.
The book of Joel that we read this morning.
ìwé Jóẹ́lì tí a kà lówùrọ̀.
Joel was one of the prophets that we refer to as the minor prophet in the Bible.
Jóẹ́lì wà lára àwọn wòlíì tí a kà
And
sí
is among the
wòlíì kékeré.
prophets that speak the true mind of God.
ó sì wà lára àwọn wòlíì tó sọ òtítọ́
In the day
Ọlọ́run.
of Joel, what happened here was very strange to them.
ohun tí ó ṣẹlẹ̀ ní ìgbà ti Jóẹ́lì
If
jẹ́
we
ohun tó
go back
yàtọ̀.
to chapter 1 from verse 1 to 4, we will see the account there.
tí a bá lọ sí Jóẹ́lì orí kìíní láti
Joel was
kẹrin, a ó rí tó
admonishing the
ṣẹlẹ̀.
elder, the children, that have you experienced this kind of situation before?
Jóẹ́lì wá ń gba àwọn ènìyàn níyànjú ó ń bi wọ́n pé ṣérú eléyìí ó
He
ti
said,
ṣẹlẹ̀ ní
have
àwọn
the
àgbà tí
record
òwe.
so that you can relay it to your children and your children to their children and to the next generation to come.
ó ní ẹ ní àkọsílẹ̀ rẹ̀ kẹ́ ẹ lè sọ fún àwọn ọmọ ọmọ yín àti àwọn ọmọ ọmọ yín àwọn àti àwọn
Here
tó
we
tún
read
bọ̀ lẹ́yìn.
today, we mention 4 different kind of insects.
níbi tí a kà yìí adárúkọ oríṣiríṣi bíi kòkòrò bíi
And I
márùn.
discovered in my findings that swarm of insects in this kind of nature that we mentioned here,
mo wá wò ó pé onírúurú àwọn kòkòrò tí a dárúkọ nígbà tí mò ń ṣe ìwádìí mi.
they can eat meat equivalent to 4,000 men can consume at a go.
wọ́n lè jẹ ju tí bí èèyàn bí ẹgbẹ̀rún mẹ́rin lè jẹ lẹ́ẹ̀kan náà.
Now this situation is what the Israelites were facing them
èyí ni ohun tí àwọn Ísírẹ́lì gbà ní
in
dojúkọ
4 different occasions.
ní ọ̀nà bíi mẹ́rin.
And this eventually moved them to repentance.
eléyìí wá tán ipa wọn sí
And at the
ìrònúpìwàdà.
end of the day, God restored them.
ní òpin ẹ̀ Ọlọ́run dá wọn padà.
I want to assure somebody listening to this voice
mo
today
fẹ́ mú dé ènìyàn kan lójú tó ń gbọ́ ohùn yín
that
lónìí.
this trying period will
pé
expire.
àkókò ìdojúkọ yìí yóò wá
That
sí
this
parí.
COVID-19 will end.
pé àìsàn tí à ń dojúkọ tí à ń dárúkọ rẹ̀.
So
yóò
I
parí.
want you to embrace that faith that you have in God.
mo fẹ́ kí o ru ìgbàgbọ́ tó
This
ní
is
kó
the
gbé
tough
sókè nínú
time.
Ọlọ́run.
There is no doubt about it.
àkókò tó burú ni kò sí
We are
àríyànjiyàn
going
nínú rẹ̀.
from changes of difficulty from one place to another.
à ń kúrò nínú ìpele ìnira sí
The
ìdókòwò.
difficulty that the Israelites faced in those days
ìdojúkọ tí àwọn ọmọ Ísírẹ́lì
was so devastating that it cannot be recorded in months, weeks, or days.
tó burú títí pé wọn ò tiẹ̀ kì í ṣe tí wọ́n lè kọ sílẹ̀ ní oṣooṣù àbí ní ọjọ́jọ́.
But they recorded it in years.
ṣùgbọ́n wọ́n ṣe àkọsílẹ̀ ní
God
ọdọọdún.
said that I will restore those years back.
Ọlọ́run sọ wípé èmi yóò dá ọdún
He
wọn
has
rìn.
promised and he will fulfill
ó
it.
ti ṣèlérí yóò sì mú ṣẹ.
This is actually what is happening in our generation.
ohun tó ń ṣẹlẹ̀ nínú ìran tiwa
The
nìyí.
Israelites, they experienced this situation
àwọn ọmọ Ísírẹ́lì ìgbàanì wọ́n ní ìrírí yìí.
because they left Yahweh for other gods.
nítorí pé wọ́n fi Yahweh Ọlọ́run sílẹ̀.
This
wọ́n sin
was
Ọlọ́run mi.
purely the judgment of God.
èyí ni ìdájọ́ Ọlọ́run.
I'm not saying that coronavirus is the judgment of God,
èmi ò sọ wípé àìsàn kòrónà yìí
but
jẹ́
this
ìdájọ́
virus
Ọlọ́run.
is preparing us of what we will face after the judgment.
ṣùgbọ́n eléyìí ń palẹ̀mọ́ ọkàn wa sílẹ̀ ohun tí a ó dojúkọ lẹ́yìn ìdájọ́.
This is what we will face after the rapture might have taken place.
eléyìí ni ó ṣẹlẹ̀ lẹ́yìn ìgbà tí a bá ti gba àwọn àyànfẹ́ sókè.
Now things are not done in the way it's supposed to be.
a ò rí ohun ṣe ní ọ̀nà bó ṣe yẹ ká
Things
ṣe.
are done in the way that it negates the plans of God.
ohun gbogbo ń ṣẹlẹ̀ ní èyí tó dàbí tó
There is
lòdì sí ìpinnu
no
Ọlọ́run.
major difference between the altar and shrine any
kò
longer.
tiẹ̀ wá sí ìyàtọ̀ láàrin pẹpẹ àti ojúbọ.
Some pastors are not even better than higher than are saying.
àwọn olùṣọ́ àgùntàn mìíràn wọn ò tiẹ̀ dára ju
You
àwọn
can
apani lọ.
hardly differentiate between a Christian and a pagan.
kò sí ìyàtọ̀ láàrin kìrìsìtẹ́nì àti
Homosexual
aláìgbàgbọ́.
marriages are celebrating in churches by priests.
ìgbéyàwó ọkùnrin sí ọkùnrin obìnrin sí obìnrin là ń ṣe àjọyọ̀ nínú ìjọ.
Please, you minister that are doing this.
ẹ jọ̀wọ́ ẹ̀yin ìránṣẹ́ Ọlọ́run tí ẹ ń
Where
ṣe.
in your Bible do you find this?
àpapọ̀ nínú bíbélì yín ni ẹ ti rí.
Where in your Bible do you find this?
nínú bíbélì yín níbo ni a kọ sí.
This is purely the sign of the end time.
èyí jẹ́ àmì òpin
And it's telling us that Jesus Christ can come at any time.
èyí wá ń sọ fún wọn pé Jésù lè dé nígbà tí a
The
kò rò.
coming of Jesus Christ is no longer soon,
bíbọ̀ Jésù kò ń ṣe pé ó sì jìnnà.
but the coming of Jesus Christ is now.
àkókò dídé rẹ̀ nìyí.
If an ordinary unseen virus can hold the entire world into
tó bá
ransom,
jẹ́ pé kòkòrò tí a ò fojú rí tó wá
that
kó
means
gbogbo àgbáyé káwọ́.
God did not need assistance of human being to judge the world.
èyí wá fi hàn wípé ọlọ́run ò tiẹ̀ nílò
These
ìrànlọ́wọ́
are
ènìyàn
the
láti ṣe
signs
ìdájọ́ ayé.
of the end time.
eléyìí jẹ́ àmì ìgbà
The
ìkẹyìn.
Bible says that there will be an increase in natural disasters.
bíbélì sọ wípé onírúurú
The
àjàkálẹ̀ àrùn
Bible
ni ó
says
ṣẹlẹ̀.
there will be so many false prophets.
ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ wòlíì èké ni yóò wà.
There will be wrong teachings, blasphemy, wrong doctrine here and there.
ẹ̀kọ́ ìlòdì àti ìsọ̀rọ̀ lòdì sí
Global crying
ọlọ́run.
will be worldwide crying for peace.
ẹ̀ṣẹ̀ yóò wá gba gbogbo
There
ayé
will be
kan.
famine everywhere.
ìyàn yóò wà níbi gbogbo.
Nation will be rising against nation.
orílẹ̀-èdè yóò dìde sí orílẹ̀-èdè.
Pestilence will be everywhere.
àjàkálẹ̀ àrùn yóò wà níbi
And
gbogbo.
many people will be called themselves Messiah.
àpọ̀lọpọ̀ ni ó pe ara wọn ní.
Mind you, this situation is reminding us of the coming of Jesus Christ.
eléyìí gbogbo àwọn ìṣẹ̀lẹ̀ wọ̀nyí ó rán wa
But I want to
bíbọ̀
tell you
Jésù.
that you should not give up.
ṣùgbọ́n mo fẹ́ fi dá ọ létí má ṣe
Never
sọ̀rọ̀
give up
ìtúnú.
on this present
má ṣe
situation.
sọ̀rọ̀ ìtúnú ní irú àkókò yìí.
Every problem has its expiring date.
gbogbo ìṣòro ló ní àkókò tó mú
Hear me
lópin.
and hear me good.
gbọ́ mi kò sì gbọ́ mi dáradára.
I say every problem have its own expiring date.
gbogbo ìṣòro ló ní àkókò tó máa
Hear the
lópin.
word of God in verse 21 where we read today.
gbọ́ ọ̀rọ̀ ọlọ́run nínú ìwé Jóẹ́lì.
He said,
ẹsẹ̀
"Fear
kọkànlá
not."
tí a- ó ní má ṣe bẹ̀rù
O land,
ìwọ ilẹ̀
be glad
jẹ́ kí inú rẹ dùn
and rejoice,
kí o sì yọ̀
for the Lord will do great things.
nítorí ọlọ́run yóò ṣe ohun.
Fear not.
má ṣe bẹ̀rù.
Do not entertain fear as Christians.
má gba ìbẹ̀rù láàyè gẹ́gẹ́ bí
Don't let
Kristẹni.
this pandemic virus make you to deny God,
má jẹ́ kí àrùn yìí kó sọ
because
ẹni
it
tí ò mọ
will end
ọlọ́run
one day.
nítorí yóò dópin lọ́jọ́.
God have power to turn our sorrow to joy.
ọlọ́run ní agbára láti sọ ìbànújẹ́
He
wa di
have
ayọ̀.
power to deliver us by the precious blood that Jesus Christ shed on the cross
ó
of
ní
Calvary.
agbára láti gbà wá nípa ẹ̀jẹ̀
What
Jésù tó ta sílẹ̀
requires
lórí
of
òkè.
you and I
ohun tí ó ń béèrè lọ́wọ́ èmi àti
is
ìwọ
for
ni
us to do our own part.
láti sa ipá tiwa.
If we do our own part,
tí a bá sa ipá tiwa
God will definitely play his own role.
ọlọ́run yóò sì sa ipá tirẹ̀.
What is our part?
kí ni ipa tiwa?
And it is recorded, as we are reminded last week,
a ti kọ sílẹ̀ bí a ṣe rán wa létí ní ọ̀sẹ̀ tó kọjá.
in 2 Chronicle chapter 7.
nínú ìwé kúrónìkù orí kejì
If we go to verse 14,
tí a bá lọ sí ẹsẹ̀
it
kẹrìnlá
recorded here that we need to humble ourselves.
a kọ sílẹ̀ pé a gbọ́dọ̀ rẹ ara wa sílẹ̀.
We need to pray and accompany this with fasting.
a gbọ́dọ̀ gbàdúrà ká sì fi
We
àwẹ̀
need
sí
to
lẹ́yìn.
seek the face of God.
a gbọ́dọ̀ wá ojú ọlọ́run.
We need to acknowledge ourselves as
a
sinners.
gbọ́dọ̀ mú ara wa gẹ́gẹ́ bí
We
ẹlẹ́ṣẹ̀.
need to repent from them all
a gbọ́dọ̀ jáwọ́ kúrò nínú
and
gbogbo
ask
ìpàdé.
for the mercy of
kí a
God.
wá béèrè fún àánú ọlọ́run.
Then God will now play his own role.
nígbà náà ni ọlọ́run yóò wá sa ipá
He will
tirẹ̀.
then now provide for our needs.
yóò sì pèsè fún àìní
He
wa.
will then now empower us.
yóò wá fún wa ní agbára.
He will then now comfort us.
yóò tù wá nínú.
Then the Lord will deliver us.
nígbà náà ni ọlọ́run yóò gbà
Then
wá.
the Lord will forgive us.
nígbà náà lọ́lọ́run yóò
Then
dáríjì
the
wá.
Lord will heal our land.
nígbà náà ni ọlọ́run yóò wo ilé
There
wa
is
sàn.
no doubt that the entire world is sick.
kò sí àní-àní gbogbo
But
àgbáyé
lo and
ṣàìsàn.
behold,
ṣùgbọ́n
let me tell you this.
jẹ́ kí n sọ èyí fún ọ.
Let me tell you this.
jẹ́ kí n sọ èyí
As
fún
word
ọ.
of assurance
gẹ́gẹ́ bí ọ̀rọ̀
that we will
ìdánilójú
come together.
tí a bá bí a ti pé papọ̀
That we will come together
pé kí a lè pé papọ̀
as household of God
gẹ́gẹ́ bí ará ilé ìgbàgbọ́
to sing the song of victory
láti kọ orin ìṣẹ́gun
that we have conquered
pé a
coronavirus.
ti borí
Our
coronavirus.
sorrow will definitely turn to joy.
ìbànújẹ́ wa yóò wá
But
di
for
ayọ̀.
only those that can endure to the end,
ṣùgbọ́n fún gbogbo àwọn tó bá
only
lè kó
those that can
dópin,
stand firm in God.
àwọn tí wọ́n lè dúró ṣinṣin
And
nínú
I pray
ọlọ́run.
that God will give us power
mo ti gbàdúrà pé ọlọ́run yóò fún wa ní
to
agbára
endure to the end.
láti dúró di òpin.
And God will energize us
ọlọ́run yóò fi agbára
so
fún
that
wa
we will sing that victorious song
a ó kọrin aṣẹ́gun náà
that we shall overcome.
pé a ó borí.
Remember this song that as I'm rounding up.
rántí orin yìí bí mo ti
It
ń wá
said,
sí
there will be joy in the morning.
wípé ayọ̀ yóò wà lórí
Oh, child of God,
wọ ọmọ ọlọ́run
cry no more,
má sọkún mọ́
because there will be joy in the morning.
nítorí pé ayọ̀ yóò wà lówùúrọ̀.
Oh, there will be joy in the morning. There will be joy in the morning. Oh, child of God, cry no more. There will be joy in the morning. Let us pray.
ẹ jẹ́ ká gbàdúrà.
Lord, we thank you for another opportunity given to us. to hear your word and the benefit of the blessing therein. We strongly believe in your power to turn our sorrow to joy. And on this we solely depend. Lord, we pray that you give us power to overcome this situation in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. As your word has go forth, Father, let it be a word of deliverance to your people. Thank you, Lord, because you've answered our prayer. For we prayed in Jesus' name. Amen.
The Lord be with you. Let us pray. When the Lord returned the fortune of Zion, it was like a dream. And our mouth was filled with laughter, and our tongue was filled with joy. Then the people said, the Lord have done great things to us. Nígbà tí Olúwa mú ìkólọ Síónì wá padà, wá dàbí ẹni tí ń là àlá. Nígbà náà ni ẹnu wa kún fún ẹ̀rín, nígbà náà ni ahọ́n wa kún fún ayọ̀, nígbà náà ni àwọn kèfèrí sọ pé Olúwa ṣeun ńlá fún wa. Ní gbogbo ọ̀nà la fi ọpẹ́ fún ọ, ní gbogbo ọ̀nà la fi yìn fún ọ. Olúwa, ní gbogbo ọ̀nà la gbé ọ ga nítorí pé o tún mú wa rí Sunday tó kàn nínú oṣù yìí. Àdúpẹ́ o nínú ìjì, nínú ìdààmú, nínú wàhálà, nínú pákáleke ayé. Olódùmarè, àdúpẹ́ o pé ò jẹ́ kí ẹ̀mí wa kó bọ́. Bí ìjì ṣe ń jà nínú sàmánì yìí, àdúpẹ́ pé Olódùmarè ò padà lẹ́yìn wa. Ọba tí ń tẹ́wọ́ gbọ́ ọpẹ́, Olúwa má ṣe tẹ́wọ́ gbọ́ ọpẹ́ wa. Ọba tí ń tẹ́wọ́ gbà yín, Olúwa má ṣe tẹ́wọ́ gbà yín wa. Lord, we thank you. Lord, we give glory. Lord, we praise you for being a living witness of this day, for making it possible for us to witness the last Sunday in the month of April. Thank you for your blessings. Thank you for your care. Thank you, Lord, for the food we eat. Thank you, Lord, that in spite of all these coronavirus, Lord, you've blessed us to drain this morning. This means you are a loving God. You are a merciful God. You are a gracious God, because you've promised us that I will be merciful unto you, and your sins I will not remember again. Lord, we pray that you have mercy upon us in Jesus' name. At this point in time, we realize our transgressions. We realize our sins. We know that we are sinners. The Bible says the wages of sin is death, and the gift of God is eternal life through Christ. Lord, at this point in time, if it is our sin, Lord, we are aware that we have sinned against you. There is no doubt about that. Probably. That's why we are facing these great challenges. But Lord, we commit ourselves into your care. Where we have offended you, we pray for forgiveness of sin in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Those who have lost their life in this coronavirus, Lord, we commit the family into your care. Please, Lord, stand by them in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Strengthen them in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Olúwa, ríra wa gẹ́gẹ́ bí ẹlẹ́ṣẹ̀. Bí a bá sọ wípé àwa kò ní ẹ̀ṣẹ̀, àwa ń tara wa jẹ, òtítọ́ kan kò sì sí nínú wa. Ìwọ lọ́ba tí dárí ẹ̀ṣẹ̀ jì ni. Olúwa, dárí ẹ̀ṣẹ̀ wa jì wá.
Amen.
Ẹ̀mí mímọ́, dárí ẹ̀ṣẹ̀ wa jì wá.
Amen.
Olúwa, dárí ẹ̀ṣẹ̀ wa jì wá.
Amen.
Gbogbo ayé ló di títì báyìí o, Olódùmarè, nítorí àìsàn tí ẹ̀dá kan kò fojú rí. Bàbá mi àti Ọlọ́run mi, ó ní èmi lè ṣe ohun gbogbo nínú Kristi ẹni tó ń fi agbára fún mi. Olúwa, àìsàn yìí má jẹ́ ó kọlù wá.
Amen.
Àìsàn yìí má jẹ́ ó kọlù wá.
Amen.
Ẹ̀mí mímọ́ sọ̀kalẹ̀ lókè òkè ọ̀run wá.
Amen.
Olúwa, gbogbo ibi tí àìsàn yìí bá wà, ní orúkọ Jésù Kristi ti Násárẹ́tì, iná ọ̀run kó máa jó wọn.
Amen.
Iná ọ̀run kó máa jó wọn.
Amen.
Iná ọ̀run kó máa jó wọn.
Amen.
The entire world, Lord, is actually facing this coronavirus, in which no man can see with the naked eyes. It's an invisible disease. But Lord, you have power. You have strength. Wherever this coronavirus, Lord, is moving up and down, Almighty and everlasting God, set it at blaze in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Set it at blaze in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Set it at blaze in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Lord, you've promised us that you will never leave us in desolate.
Yes.
And at this point in time, Lord, we pray that you will be with us.
Amen.
Lord, we pray that you will be with us.
Amen.
Our prayer, may it never be in vain.
Amen.
Our prayer, may it never be in vain.
Amen.
Lord, 2020, we have made a covenant with you. Lord, let us achieve our desire in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Lord, when all things are not moving, Lord, we who are your children, let us be outstanding in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Let us be outstanding in Jesus' name.
Amen.
May we never die with this COVID-19.
Amen.
May we never die with this COVID-19.
Amen.
After COVID-19, Lord, we commit all Christians in the world into your care. Lord, let us gather together and praise you in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Revive your church.
Amen.
Lord, revive your church.
Amen.
Revive the economy of this nation.
Amen.
Revive the economy of this nation.
Amen.
Revive the health sector of this nation.
Amen.
Revive us spiritually in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Lord, we are dead. But with this coronavirus, we have seen that without you, we can do nothing. Therefore, Lord, we pray that you will revive us in Jesus' name.
Amen.
We plead the blood of Jesus
Lord of Jesus.
upon all the entire world. Those who are affected with coronavirus, Father, heal them in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Lord, heal them in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Olúwa fi ayé wa lé ọ lọ́wọ́ nínú ọdún 2020 yìí àti bọ́ ọdẹ májẹ̀mú pé yóò dára fún wa. Olúwa bí coronavirus yìí nínú rẹ̀ Olúwa gbìjà wa jà.
Amen.
Olúwa gbìjà wa jà.
Amen.
Olúwa dá wa láre.
Amen.
Olúwa dá wa láre.
Amen.
Ogun coronavirus tá a fojú rí Olúwa má jẹ́ ó kó wa lọ.
Amen.
Olúwa má jẹ́ ó kó wa lọ.
Amen.
Olódùmarè má jẹ́ ó kó wa lọ.
Amen.
Sọ wá jí nínú ẹ̀mí.
Amen.
Olúwa sọ wá jí nínú ẹ̀mí.
Amen.
Olódùmarè sọ wá jí nínú ẹ̀mí.
Amen.
Nítorí tó o bá sọ wá jí nínú ẹ̀mí,
Yes, Lord.
agbára ẹ̀bùn ẹ̀mí má yóò máa tẹ̀lé wa. Níbikíbi tí agbára ẹ̀bùn ẹ̀mí má bá sì wà, coronavirus ni o, àìsàn káìsàn ni o, jíjó ni ó máa jó wọn. Nítorí náà Olúwa gbogbo ibi tí àìsàn yìí wà, iná ọ̀run máa jó wọn.
Amen.
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 Gbogbo àwa tá a wà nínú ilé tá à ń gbúrò wa lówùúrọ̀ yìí lórúkọ Jésù, àìsàn burúkú ò ní wọlé tọ̀ wá.
Amen.
Àìsàn burúkú ò ní wọlé tọ̀ wá.
Amen.
Coronavirus will not make way into our home.
Amen.
Coronavirus will not make way into our family.
Amen.
Coronavirus will not make way into our various works.
Amen.
By the special grace of God, we will come out strongly in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Therefore, I plead the blood of Jesus upon each and every one of us.
The blood of
watching
Jesus.
us, Lord, the blood of Jesus will cover you.
Amen.
The blood of Jesus will cover you.
Amen.
The blood of Jesus will cover each and every one of us.
Amen.
We will never die prematurely.
Amen.
Either coronavirus or no coronavirus. Lord, you've promised us that long life you are going to satisfy us. And when we call your name, you will answer us. And in time of trouble, you will be with us. Father, let your words be fulfilled in our lives in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Let your words be fulfilled in our lives in Jesus' name.
Amen.
After the resurrection, the Holy Spirit descended upon the apostles and they worked miraculously.
Yes, Lord.
Lord, after this coronavirus, new things, let it accomplish us in Jesus' name.
Amen.
The Bible says when one is in Christ, is in a new creation. Behold, all things are gone and all things are new. Lord, after this coronavirus, all your children in this entire world, all your children of planet Earth, Lord, let us be outstanding in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Let us love you before previous. Let us love you than the previous years.
Amen.
Thank you, wonderful Jesus.
Thank you, Jesus.
Lord, I commit all of us into the hands of the Lord. It will be well with us.
Amen.
It will be well with our children.
Amen.
It will be well with our husband.
Amen.
Nigeria, it will be well with us.
Amen.
Methodist Church, it will be well with us.
Amen.
And all of you looking us from home, it will be well with you.
Amen.
None of us will be affected with this coronavirus in Jesus' name.
Amen.
And none of us will die of coronavirus in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Adequate hand of the Lord, adequate protection of the Lord, the Shekinah glory of the Lord will tabernacle over each and every one of us in Jesus' name.
Amen.
We will gather once again
Yes,
to
Lord.
rejoice. We will gather once again and sing praise the Lord. We will gather once again and sing hallelujah in the name of God the Father,
Amen.
God the Son,
Amen.
and God the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Unto gracious Lord, I keep all of you. The Lord bless you. The Lord keep you.
Amen.
The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you.
Amen.
And the blessings of God the Father and of the Son
Amen.
and of the Holy Spirit
Amen.
be with us now and forevermore. Our signature tune.
Love. Thank you for the blessing. I lifted up Jesus, Son of God, the treasure of heaven crucified. Worthy is the Lamb. Worthy is the Lamb.
For all those who are watching us, the Bishop of the Diocese of Lagos North greets all of you, making prophetic impartation in the life of each and every one of us watching us here, that none of us would die of the coronavirus.